welcome back to Starting Six, a volleyball podcast with Haley and Liv. This is episode 16, and we are recapping everything that you may have missed from week 7. It was a big week, but kind of not at the same time. It was a little like it had a heavy start, and then it slowed down, and then a pretty big incline, and then slowed down again. Okay, sweet. But before we get into today's episode, I have a couple of records that were broken that I want to talk about.
Yes.
The first one has nothing to do with volleyball, but it also has everything to do with volleyball. Iowa women's basketball held a game in Kinnick Stadium. And they broke an attendance record. They had 55,646 people there. The setup looked pretty similar to what Nebraska did, I would say. I know that it's the difference of the seasons, but I think having an outdoor game in Iowa in the middle of October is a little crazy. But there were tons of fans there, the same way there were for Nebraska. So just really cool to continue to see women's sports kind of take the next step and level up a little bit. And it's just another area showing people that they're here to stay and people want to watch. So I thought that if, I don't know much about women's basketball, but if any program was going to do it, one led by Caitlin Clark's probably the way to go. But yeah, I thought that was really cool. And I wanted to mention it because I think Nebraska, we talked about Nebraska kind of pioneering the way for other volleyball teams, but to pioneer the way for women's basketball too is pretty sick.
Yeah. And they get a really good showing. I mean, it's not what Nebraska had, but it's pretty comparable, I would say. And so it's really impressive that they were able to, especially on a really crappy weekend, to be completely honest, like get that many people out there in the cold and the rainy, and support is pretty awesome.
Yeah. And during football season too, to have the go ahead from your football team and your athletic department to, have all that stuff down on the field. I was pretty impressed with that as well.
Yeah.
Okay. Next, there was a record break for the longest match in NCAA women's volleyball history. So 3 hours and 45 minutes is the new longest match. And it was between UIC and
Evansville.
Evansville, is that what it was?
Yeah.
So the previous record was 3 hours and 38 minutes set in 1998 between Hawaii and BYU. 3 hours and 45 minutes.
Did you look at the scores?
No, I didn't.
The scores are insane. So it was a 5-set. It obviously had to have been. Evansville won. It was 22-25, 25-22, 27-25. 21-25, and in the 5th set it was 36-34.
Oh my god. Wow, no wonder.
Yeah, I was like, that is like you just played a 6th match or a 6th set in that. Like you doubled what the 5th set should be.
Yeah, so I just looked it up. So Avengers Endgame is 3 hours, has 182 minutes. The Titanic, 3 hours and 14 minutes. It's 3 hours and 14 minutes. It's 194 minutes. I'm trying to think of other movies that are so long, but this game was longer than all of them.
Wasn't that new Oppenheim?
Oh yeah, that one is.
Wasn't that a super long one too?
It says 3 hours, but yeah, that movie was long. I saw it.
Yeah, that's insane.
It's half a work day. Like 4 hours is half my work day.
Yeah, and you're exerting yourself almost the entire time. Like I would be dead. Like that is super impressive. And one of the outside hitters from Evansville had 40 kills.
Yep.
They had both teams had over 200 hitting attempts.
Yeah, so that was my next record break. So Evansville, I think her name is pronounced Julia from the way it looks. Yeah. Julia Cardona had 40 kills, 16 digs, and 41.5 points for Evansville volleyball against UIC. This is the first 40 kill match in the NCAA in 2 years.
Yeah.
40 kills is so
Mhm.
many. I wonder how many attempts she took.
Well, I'm just thinking, like, as a whole, both teams had over 200 hitting attempts.
Oh,
Like
you would have
most
been
teams,
down bad.
yeah, like most teams in a five setter are like 80, 90, 100 hitting attempts or so. 200, over 200.
That's
And there's another player on Evansville that had 27 kills. And then on UIC, there was a girl that had 20 kills. And then two players had 13. And their setters had almost 80 assists.
that's insanity. Like that's just crazy. I would have had to been checked out for a week. Like I would have had to just been like, no one speak to me for 7 business days.
Yeah.
I would have been so dead. 3 hours and 45 minutes. You know how much you could get done in 3 hours and 45 minutes?
A lot.
Wow.
The fans got their money worth.
No, and then some. Like I wouldn't go to a game for the rest of the year.
You got all of your volleyball film in
Yeah.
one match.
Awesome. Okay, well that's all I had. I just wanted to touch base on that. Okay, let's get into it. So week 7 started on the 9th. However, no really notable games until the 11th. My first one, lots of upsets this episode too. I'd like to preface. It was either an upset or a predictable. Well, okay. When you say that, that like would make sense. Like it was either an update or it was really just like it was an upset or it was a sweep.
Yeah.
Like there really wasn't like too much in between. I'll say that.
Yeah, there's honestly only like 2 notable 5-set matches, I feel like.
Yeah. So it wasn't like I would say that this is going to be our last week of pretty predictable volleyball.
Yes.
I think from here it's going to start getting there's going to be some movement in conference and nationally. I think there's going to be the competition is going to heat up a little bit. I think we're going to get a taste to what the postseason is going to look like. So I think week 7 is the last of the episodes that will preface as a little predictable. So
wouldn't it be hitting like the halfway mark?
I believe so, yeah.
Because middle of December is when the championship is.
Correct. Yep. Yeah. So I'd say that we're about hitting the middle. I think there's probably like 16 weeks, I'd say. So we're probably about in the middle of it.
Yeah.
Okay, sweet. So let's dive in. The first notable match that I have here is Indiana hosting number 15 Purdue and winning in 4. Some notable stats. I'll start here with the score. So Indiana won 25-23, 17-25, 25-16, 25-17. And some notable players for Indiana was Avery Tatum, the 6'2". She's listed as right side middle. I don't know which one she is. I didn't get to watch this game, but she had 12 kills, 3 errors on 24 attempts for a .375. Candela Alonso Corcelis, 6'2" outside, had 12 kills, 8 errors, 34 attempts for a .118. And Morgan Geddes, 6'2" outside, 10 kills, 3 errors, 32 attempts for a .219. And then for your standout players for Purdue, pretty predictable here, you know, if you listen week to week. Chloe Chicoine, 5'10", freshman outside. She had 17 kills, 7 errors on 50 attempts for a .200. Eva Hudson, 6'1", sophomore outside, 17 kills, 3 errors, 41 attempts for a .341%. And Raven Colvin, the 6'1" junior middle, had 13 kills, 4 errors, 24 attempts for a .375. So these hitting percentages on paper look a lot better.
Yeah.
So I have some notes, and I want to get your thoughts on some of this. Okay. We've talked about this in the past a little bit, but I think this is a prime example of home court advantage.
Yep.
Because Indiana fans have packed, they play in Wilkinson Hall all year long, and it has really paid off. This is their first win over Purdue since 2012.
Yeah.
I'm not shocked. Indiana's good. Like
they are.
Sure. They're a force in the Big Ten. And if anyone was going to lose to them, it was going to be Purdue. And then like probably Minnesota. And then even like maybe Penn State. So I think that this wasn't one of the upsets that you were like, what? Like, how did that happen? But it definitely isn't good for Purdue. So a couple of stats that I thought were interesting. So Indiana really out-hit Purdue in sets 3 and 4. So while Purdue's individual numbers looked pretty good, Indiana in set 3 hit a .310 to Purdue's .148. And in set 4, Indiana hit a .385 to Purdue's .122. So pretty big difference there. And then some notable games that Indiana has played in conference that we haven't talked about in grave detail, I don't think, is they went to 4 with Nebraska, they went to 5 with Penn State, and they swept Maryland. So this is a team that's going to be middle to inching towards top of the conference, even though they aren't ranked.
Yeah, I think Indiana is really scrappy and they have really good defense, and they're not a team to just give up. I think they've worked really hard to get where they are. And we had mentioned before we started recording, like, I personally think we're going to be seeing Indiana in the top 25 soon. They're top in the Big Ten. A lot of the Big Ten teams are falling out of the top 25. I think Indiana can sneak their way in, and I think they can hold their own, not only in the Big Ten, but in the top 25 if they continue to play like this.
Yeah, I would agree. So Indiana is going to become one of our kind of teams to watch here, especially if you're a Big Ten follower. I think there's going to be some pretty big games in the second half of conference that are really going to, kind of tell where Indiana might sit going into the postseason.
Yeah.
Okay. The other game that I have down, I won't go into grave detail because pretty easy stuff, but I'm sorry, I skipped one. Let's see.
I was like, the one on the 11th, that was a pretty big upset.
No, yes, this one's a big upset. I jumped the gun. Kansas State hosted number 25 Iowa State and took the dub in 3. This is the second time Kansas has done this. They beat Baylor last week.
Yeah.
So these scores are a little rough. So Kansas State won 25-20, 25-16, 25-18. Their top hitter, Anaya Clinton, is a 6'2" freshman pin. She had 12 kills, 4 errors on 23 attempts for a .348%. And Aliyah Carter, the 5'10" senior pin, had 9 kills, 4 errors on 28 attempts for a .179 and 11 digs for a double-double. For Iowa State, they were led by Maya Duckworth, the 5'8" sophomore pin. She had 12 kills, 2 errors on 36 attempts for a .278. And Lily Watchell, 6'2" freshman pin, 10 kills, 5 errors, 22 attempts for a .227. My first note, one may argue home court advantage here again. However, that's not to rule out that Kansas State has been on a bit of an upset roll after winning over ranked Baylor last week. And then Kansas State also really heavily out-hit Iowa State. It was a .276 to a .152, a .212 to a .017, and a .256 to a .116. So really just a consistent game for Kansas State, and Iowa kind of just slowly declining there.
Yeah, I feel like Iowa makes it in the top 25, then quickly leaves and then enters again and then is back out. They're good, but just too inconsistent to stay at the very top.
Yeah, I would agree. They kind of they crawl, fight their way in, and then they just can't hold on long enough. And then it kind of is like they tumble and then have to start over. But Kansas State just really trying to make a name. These past couple weeks, they've been fighting, and I think a sweep over number 25 is a pretty big statement.
Yeah,
so.
For sure.
Okay. Now, as I was saying, the last game I have for the 11th is Big Ten. Michigan hosted number 24 Minnesota and got swept. Minnesota won 26-24, 25-11, 25-16. The only notable game I had for October 12th, Cincinnati hosted number 20 Baylor, and Baylor won in 4. Those scores were 25-17, 25-19, 19-25, 25-21. And then moving into Friday the 13th, we had some predictable, some not. So I'll start by running you through the ones we're not going to go too crazy in. Number 1, Wisconsin swept Rutgers 25-17, 25-4, 25-16.
That's just an ass kicking.
That's insane.
I saw that and my jaw like dropped. I was like, you don't see that at the D1 like Big Ten competition. Like that's like middle school, high school stuff that happens. It made me laugh.
No, it reminded me of when my sister was in middle school. I don't know if she was like 7th or 8th grade, but she served all 25 points.
Yeah.
So it's 25-0.
Yep. That's what it reminded me of.
Yeah, she served all 25 points. And yeah, that's exactly it. 25-4. We have seen one 25-6. I think it was Arizona or Arizona State.
Something like that. Yeah.
But not a 25-4. I saw that on Instagram stories and I was my like jaw was on the floor. I couldn't believe it. And then number 2, Nebraska gets the win over Michigan State. They did go to 4 again. So those scores are 25-12, 25-19, 22-25, 25-15. So I kind of predicted that Michigan State was going to get killed by Nebraska at home, but it seemed to be pretty consistent with how the scores were when they played in Michigan State last week.
Yeah. The one thing I wanted to mention about this, and this is something that we haven't really seen at all yet so far, Harper Murray was not in the double digits for kills. She was not one of their leading hitters during this match. She had 7 kills, had a .08 hitting percentage, 7 digs, which so far has been super uncharacteristic of her. So I just thought that was interesting and could have potentially played into this match going to 4.
Yeah, I would agree. That's not something we've seen of her yet. It's getting to that kind of middle of the season, and you and I went through it too. You kind of get into this like a rut almost where you're tired, you're, mentally just kind of over some things, and you got a lot more on your plate, especially like class wise. I feel like sometimes we forget that like these girls are going to school. And so I think this time of year just starts to get a little bit hectic, and the pressure's really on now. So it could be a number of things, but yeah, that's definitely not a characteristic of hers, like at all. I was surprised to see that as well. Okay, next I have number 3, Stanford sweeping Southern California, 25-22, 25-14, 25-14. Stanford has just been dominating their conference for the most part, so they've been a little quiet in terms of being on our radar, but I'm sure towards the end of the year they're gonna come right back on.
Yeah.
Number 4, Washington State sweeps Utah 25-15, 25-21, 25-12. Number 5, Oregon sweeps Arizona 26-24, 25-8, 25-15. And then the games that I want to talk about here start with number 6, Louisville hosting number 8, Pittsburgh. So I watched this game and I'm a little embarrassed because I feel like on this podcast I say things and then the opposite happens, and this happened to me in real life. Thank God it was just with my mother, but I was at home watching volleyball with her this weekend, and we turned this game on and I was like, oh Mom, like this is going to be a good game, like this is going to be like a big face off and blah blah blah. And it was like a fairly good game, but like I just kept being like, Mom, like don't worry about it, like it's gonna be a 4 or 5 set match, like don't worry about it. It wasn't. So Louisville swept, and I'm disappointed. I am. But it was just embarrassing. It was embarrassing. I kept telling my mom like, don't worry about it, like they're coming back. They never did. But it was close. So the scores were 25-21, 25-23, 25-22. This game was played in Louisville at the KFC Yum Center. Leading for Louisville, shocker, Anna DeBeer, 6-foot senior outside with 15 kills, 2 errors on 29 attempts for a .448 and 10 digs for a double-double. Kara Cressy, I think is how you say her name, 6'6" sophomore middle, 10 kills, 1 error on 14 attempts for a .643%. And Charity Looper, 5'9" junior outside, 10 kills, 2 errors, 22 attempts for a .364%. So very large numbers coming from Louisville. For Pitt, Tori Stafford, 6'2" freshman outside, had 10 kills, 4 errors, 23 attempts, and a .261%. I just want to say I adore her. I think like she's going to be so good, and she's really fun to watch. Olivia Babcock, 6'5" freshman right side, had 9 kills, 8 errors, 33 attempts on a .03. And then Chiamaka. Oh,
the N is silent, I think.
You think it's just Wakolo?
Something like that. Like
Okay,
they don't really pronounce the N very.
You can find her on the roster because her name is Chiamaka. So, you know, there probably isn't 2 of those. She's a 5th-year middle. She had 8 kills, no errors on 12 attempts for a .667%. It's big numbers all around, really.
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, Louisville's offense was just unstoppable.
Yeah.
They hit a .242, a .367, and a .543.
Yeah.
So they were over 500 in set 3.
Yeah.
You're not stopping that.
Pitt's defense just didn't look very strong, I didn't think.
No, and the arena that Louisville plays in is huge. There was a ton of people there. You could hear how loud it was. Like it just it matters. And I think that anytime that Anna DeBeer has a very on game, the other team is in trouble.
Yeah.
That's my conclusion about Louisville. If Anna DeBeer is on, you are screwed.
Yep, sorry.
Yeah. Anyway, Louisville's just gonna keep just trudging.
Yeah.
I think. I think Pitt was probably their biggest conference matchup, right?
One of them, yeah. I know that the commentators are saying that because that's the ACC, right? Or I think that's the SEC? No, ACC.
No, not SEC. It's probably ACC.
I think it's the ACC. But they were commenting on the conference and saying that it's getting stronger, which is going to help them all in the postseason, just like the coaches and everything, and the culture of that conference is starting to become more dominant. So it's going to be helping Louisville for the postseason and Pitt and some of the other teams. So it's just interesting that they were saying that, and we have also mentioned things like that about Louisville needs a stronger competition in their conference, but the other teams are trying to do what they can to create more competition for them. So
yeah, for sure. Which we talked about too. It just kind of seems like we're all like, oh, look at Louisville, look at their record, look at their conference, and they get to the postseason, and then it's just kind of like they don't have the same level of intensity and level of competition as other conferences, and that gets noticed. So
yeah,
good for them. Good for the ACC. Alrighty. Next, I have number 21 Houston hosting number 7 Texas. Texas came out with a win in 4.
Yep.
Those scores were 25-21, 17-25, 25-23, 25-17. For Houston, their leading hitter, Kenna Sauer, she was a 6'1", 5th-year outside, had 23 kills, 7 errors on 45 attempts for a .356% and 16 digs.
Yeah. What
a game.
Yeah.
I mean, having 23 kills and a .356 hitting percentage is like pretty crazy.
Impressive.
Very impressive. Their next one was Abby Jackson, the 6', 5th-year outside. She had 12 kills, 6 errors on 44 attempts for a .136. And then Kellen Morin, the 6'4" junior middle, had 9 kills, 0 errors on 14 attempts for a .643%. On the flip side, typical Madison Skinner at the top of the leaderboard, the 6'2" junior outside, had 21 kills, 4 errors on 48 attempts for a .354% and 10 digs for a double-double. Jenna Winas, the 6'1" junior outside, had 14 kills, 2 errors on 39 attempts for a .308%. And Ella Swindle, the 6'3" freshman setter, had 3 kills, 40 assists, and 10 digs.
Yeah.
Big numbers all around, really.
Yeah. I also wanted to mention with Texas, their block must have been on because Madison Skinner had 4 block assists. Molly Phillips had 1 solo block, 4 block assists. Asia O'Neal had 9 block assists.
Oh,
their blocking was on that game.
Yeah, which I think honestly their defense is probably their offensive numbers were big, but the scores were still pretty close.
Mm-hmm.
And Houston's hitters put up some big numbers. Yeah. So their defense must have been their kind of saving grace for this game. Texas, their offense is a machine. So they hit a .324, a .306, a .256, and a .412. So very big numbers from them. And then I said, I think Madison Skinner has like a real chance at being like player of the year.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Every game she's putting up massive numbers in the front row and the back row. And she's just so consistent. So consistent. Yeah. So I wouldn't be surprised to see her pretty awarded after this year.
Oh, for sure.
Next up, I have number 9 BYU hosted Texas Tech and went to 5, and it was pretty freaking close. So Texas Tech has a losing record this year. I was surprised to see these scores, especially the inconsistency of set 3. So the scores were 25-21, 22-25, 25-7, 22-25, 15-12. So it's kind of a weird toss in of that score because Texas Tech won set 2 and set 4, but only scored 7 points in set 3.
That is super weird.
I just thought that was really weird, which is mostly why I'm noting this game. I also wanted to say that Whitney McEwen, Lorenas, I don't know, Lorenas. 6'3", fifth-year middle. She had 16 kills, 2 errors on 33 attempts for a .424%. And then on the flip side for Texas Tech, Bryn Williams, the 5'10" sophomore outside, had 16 kills, but with 12 errors, 47 attempts for a .085 and 13 digs. And then their other outside had 43 attempts. So they were pushing to the outside for Texas Tech. Whereas for BYU, their top hitter was a middle, and then Aaron Livingston, of course, the 6'2" senior outside, had 12 kills on 39 attempts. So the one thing I found interesting too that I also want to note, so Texas Tech is 8-11, so not like a great team. They held BYU to a 0 hitting percentage in set 2. Yeah. A 0. I don't think that's happened to BYU for a very long time.
Yeah.
I just thought that was interesting.
Yeah.
A weird face off that should not have gone to 5.
No.
But very interesting. That could have been bad. That could have been really bad.
Yeah.
BYU holds on. Okay. So kind of another not super interesting, but number 10 Tennessee hosted number 22 Auburn and 1-4. These scores were pretty close. Auburn's been a little bit of a dark horse. But Tennessee ended up winning 25-19, 21-25, 25-21, 25-17. Their top hitter, Morgan Fingal, the 6'1" fifth-year right side, had 21 kills, 8 errors on 47 attempts for a .277% and 12 digs for a double-double. And then I also wanted to note Erica Lovett, the 5'11" junior outside, had 13 kills, 5 errors, 34 attempts for a .235 and 17 digs.
Yeah.
So pretty crazy numbers coming from Tennessee there. Top hitter for Auburn was Madison Shear, the 6'1" sophomore pin with 11 kills, 9 errors on 45 attempts for a .044%. And then their other pin hit a .064, so not overall great performance. However, Kendall Kemp, the 6'6" sophomore middle, had 9 kills, 2 errors on 15 attempts for a .467. Tennessee's offense just dominated this game. However, their defense also really came to play because they, they held Auburn to a 0, a .167, a .262, and a .03 hitting percentage. So Tennessee just absolutely dominating that game.
Yeah. kind of would have thought maybe a sweep would have happened with just how Tennessee played in their numbers, but not surprised that they went to 4 with a number 22 team, especially it being Auburn.
Yeah, it being at Tennessee also, I feel like should have aided in a little bit of a sweep, but it could have been anything. Getting stuck in a rotation is usually the killer for a lot of people, but who knows? I was surprised to see it go to 4. I do think Auburn's a dark horse, so I think it could have snuck up on them, and I don't think that's the last we'll see of Auburn, but definitely not a surprising outcome by any means. All right. I'm speaking of another 5-set thriller. Number 11 Georgia Tech hosted Florida State and won in 5, literally barely. Definition of barely. So those scores were 21-25, 25-23, 18-25, 25-18, 16-14. Really could have been anyone's game.
Yeah.
So some leading scores, Georgia Tech putting up huge numbers. Larissa Mendez, the 6'2" freshman outside, had 21 kills, 6 errors on 51 attempts for a .294. Bianca Bertolino, 6' junior outside, 21 kills, 5 errors on 63 attempts for a .254% with 13 digs. And then Tamara Oteni, 6' senior outside, had 20 kills, 10 errors on 50 attempts for a .200 and 23 digs. So crazy. Crazy numbers coming out of Georgia Tech. And from Florida State, not even close. Audrey Koenig was the leading hitter for Florida State. 6'3" junior outside, had 13 kills, 7 errors on 39 attempts for a .154 with 11 digs for a double-double. Kiari Roby, the 6'2" junior middle, had 11 kills, 1 error on 23 attempts for a .435. And Audrey Rothman, the 6' sophomore outside, had 10 kills, 4 errors, 37 attempts for a .162 and 12 digs for a double-double. Close match for a big difference in numbers. Big difference.
That's what I was going to say. Why in the world was that a 5-set thriller?
Yeah, and I didn't watch this game, and I'm kind of pissed that I didn't, because there had to have been something, like whether it was defense. Those stats are a little harder to kind of figure out. So it could have definitely been a lot of defense. It could have been a lot of serving. It could really be like anything. But when we're reading off some of these like 5-set games, the teams are hitting pretty evenly. And this was not that. So I was definitely a little thrown off, but Georgia Tech has been stumbling a little bit lately. They came out like super hot out the gate, and they've been a little shaky. So I wasn't like surprised to see it go to 5 necessarily because of that, but I was surprised at the difference in numbers, because Georgia Tech's stats looked like they had an insane game.
It did. Yeah.
And then for it to be that close was just a little intriguing to me.
Yeah. Well, and I know that when they played Pitt last week, sorry, there must be something in my eye. They got reverse swept because they came out, right? Yeah, Pitt won. It was in a reverse sweep. So I'm wondering if there's part of that they have it and then they lose their momentum, or what it is. But even though they've been kind of shaky, they're still consistent and at that like 11, 10. That number 11, 10 spot, which is pretty interesting, because even though they are shaky, they're still consistent in everything else,
Yeah.
It's kind of.
Yeah, just a weird like outcome. Again, we didn't watch, so unfortunate to not get the details on why it was so close for such big difference in offense, but who knows? Georgia Tech, man.
Pick it up.
Yeah, those poor Georgia Tech fans probably have heart problems after this year. Okay, so let's talk about a couple upsets here before we get into the remainder of the predictableness that happened on Friday the 13th. So 2 upsets. The first one is Mississippi State hosted and defeated number 14 Florida in 4.
Yep.
Sad.
It's happening.
Yep, sad. Those scores were 25-18, 20-25, 27-25, 25-21. Mississippi State just putting up big numbers.
They were, yeah.
So their leading scorer was Amina Shackelford, 6'1" junior right side, 18 kills, 3 errors for 32 attempts for a .469%. Sophie Agee, 6'2", sophomore outside, 16 kills, 3 errors, 44 attempts for a .295. And Carly Schmidt, 6'1", senior outside, 13 kills, 2 errors, 35 attempts for a .314. So their top 3 hitters had a combined total of 8 errors.
Wow.
Yeah, that is crazy. On the flip side, for Florida, predictable Kennedy Martin, the 6'6" freshman right side, had 18 kills, 4 errors on 42 attempts for a .333% and 11 digs for a double-double. And then AC Fitzpatrick, the 5'11" senior outside, had 17 kills, 6 errors, 50 attempts for a .220. Definitely sad to see Florida quickly declining.
Yeah.
We predicted it.
We did.
But sad, because I think that before Alexis Stuckey got hurt, you could argue that Florida was going to be a contender for the Final Four national championship game.
Yes.
Really. They were very good.
Yeah, and it almost seems like it's a lot of just like the mentality, because it seems like it's just a lot of errors that are coming through Florida. Like, they're still putting up good numbers and have a high number of kills, but then their errors are what are catching up to them. They had 24 hitting errors compared to Mississippi State's 10 hitting errors. That's a lot. 14 points in just hitting errors. That's half a match or half a set.
Yeah.
So I think I don't know if it's just like they're still trying to figure it out, even though, it's only one player that's kind of been shifted around, but that can make or break a team, But I don't know if it's like mentally or just they still aren't getting in the groove. But again, I mean, Kennedy Muff is still putting up 48 assists and have 5 kills. Like, it's not like she's playing bad by any means, I don't think. So I'm wondering if they're going to be able to figure it out, or if this is just what Florida has come to.
Yeah, I don't know. It feels like the morale is a little bit different around the team. It was clear when watching Florida that Alexis Stuckey brought a level of enthusiasm and excitement and togetherness, and which is what a setter should be doing. And Kennedy had to step into that role quickly and unexpectedly. And I think that, while they do deserve a little bit of grace in them trying to figure that out, at the same time, it's also kind of you're running out of time.
Yeah.
So it is sad. Like I said, I think Florida, when we do our NCAA tournament bracket, like, I think Florida would have been pretty high up on mine at the beginning of the year. And it's just unfortunate to see a program that had a lot of potential this year start declining so fast. That's not to say, I mean, Alexis Stuckey is probably going to make a pretty full recovery and be back next year. But it's never exactly the same. And there was just kind of a magic that they had this year. That's unfortunate that they kind of lost that.
Yeah. Agreed.
Okay. Next in upsets, Oregon State hosted and defeated number 19, Arizona State in 5. This was a big set, a big match. So Oregon State lost set 1, 20-25, came back and won 25-23, 25-18, dropped set 4, 13-25, and won set 5, 15-11. Oregon State's leading hitter was, it looks like Michael.
I think
Could it be Michelle? Mikael?
Sure. Put an accent to it. It changes everything.
Okay, it's Michael with a Y. So anyway, we'll go last name, Vernon.
Okay.
5'11" senior outside. She had 19 kills, 10 errors on 50 attempts for a .180 and 13 digs for a double-double. And then their next leader was Megan Sheridan, the 6'1" fifth-year right side, with 11 kills, 3 errors on 31 attempts for a .258. And then for Arizona State, Their leader was Marta Levinska, 6'2" senior right side, 22 kills, 9 errors on 54 attempts for a .241, and Roberta Rebello, 6 foot senior outside, 10 kills, 5 errors, 33 attempts for a .152. My only note is Arizona State might be the most inconsistent team in the NCAA. Like, I feel like it goes week to week where we're like, Arizona loses, Arizona wins, Arizona loses, Arizona wins. They're so inconsistent. They get into the top 25, they're out. They're in, they're out. Make up your mind. It's driving me nuts.
They're like Iowa State. You see them for a bit and then they're nowhere to be found, and then they come back for a day and then they're gone again.
Yeah, and you know what? We'll hold that thought because we're going to come back to Arizona State here. So, again, just aiding in my argument that they're so inconsistent. Okay. Some other games on Friday the 13th, I'm just going to run through really quick. Please stop me if you want to talk about any of them. But number 12, Arkansas sweeps Ole Miss 25-21, 25-16, 25-18. Iowa loses to number 13, Penn State in 3. Those scores are 25-14, 25-18, 25-14. Number 18, Dayton picks up a big win on the road against Davidson in a sweep, 25-18, 25-20, 25-23. And number 20, Baylor finishes their little back-to-back night against Cincinnati with a win, 19-25, 25-15, 25-18, 25-21. That wraps up Friday the 13th.
Yep.
Some spooky upsets happening. Moving on to the 14th, which would have been Saturday.
Yeah.
Probably the biggest game of the day was number 2 Nebraska hosting number 13 Penn State and just deciding to sweep them.
It pisses me off. Like, Penn State, come on.
I thought you were going to be upset.
I'm like, you've been doing so good. You've been proving yourself, and you just, like, you didn't show up at all. Like, they were close, but, like, you couldn't even. Michigan State took a set from Nebraska.
Yeah.
You guys
and
couldn't.
I will say, like, Penn State didn't look very good.
Yeah. It's just kind of like, oh, you shot yourself in the foot. You've been doing so well. You've been winning your Big Ten conference play, and then, like, obviously I didn't think that Penn State was going to beat Nebraska by any means, but at least take it to 4, maybe 5. You know, give it a little bit of competition. But no.
Yeah. Yeah, I was a little surprised as well. I watched this game. Penn State just didn't look very good in this game. I mean, when I watched them against Minnesota, I was like, holy crap, this Penn State team is so good. Can they play it in the Bob? Nope.
Yeah. But, like, and looking at the numbers, no offense to, like, Nebraska or anything, but they weren't hitting outstanding numbers either. You know, like, it's not like Merritt Beeson was having a 20-kill match and Harper Murray was 2. Like, they were barely in the double digits.
Yeah. This was very much Lexi Rodriguez's game.
Yes.
It was, you know, we've been on here talking a lot about Merritt Beeson and Harper Murray, as we should be, because they're an insane duo, as well as the talent of Bergen Riley and the talent of Andy Jackson on that team. But Lexi Rodriguez was the saving grace for Nebraska in terms of getting them the sweep. Penn State was just kind of funneling things to Lexi. She was stepping in and taking serve receive balls that, you know, necessarily maybe weren't designated as hers. She was playing it out of her mind in defense. She was just putting up really big numbers. She did a post-game interview and she's just so cute. Like, she's adorable. Like, she was just cheesing, her cheeks were all red. She's just adorable. But yeah, she had a really great game. Yeah, so like Liv mentioned, Merritt Beeson and Lindsey Krause led Nebraska with 13 kills. Harper Murray, I think, was at like 11 or 12. And then for Penn State, Jess Murzik, 12 kills as well. And then Cameron Hanna had 7. So my note was Nebraska did exactly what they've been doing to opponents at home, and that's holding them to a very low hitting percentage. Jess Murzik only putting up 12 kills and a .073 hitting percentage. I mean, she had 55 attempts.
Yeah, that's crazy.
That's not normal for Penn State. And then just to kind of touch base on a little bit of records here. So Nebraska remains undefeated, 17-0 and 8-0 in conference. and Penn State loses their first conference game, so they're 7-1 in the Big Ten.
Oh.
Yeah. So overall, Penn State, I think, was struggling in the beginning, but they've been doing very well in conference.
Yes. Yeah.
And that's all I have on that.
Yeah.
Not much else to say. I mean, just a sad showing from Penn State. But, they do say that Nebraska is the hardest place to play at. So it makes sense. Alrighty. Some other games on the 14th I'm just going to run through. Number 21 Houston hosted number 7 Texas for their back-to-back night. Texas with a pretty easy sweep, 25-10, 25-19, 25-23. So they win the in-state battle there. Number 9 BYU wins over Texas Tech, now in a sweep. So they went to 5 the first night, and then they swept Texas Tech the second night, 25-21, 25-14, 25-22. Make it make sense. It doesn't make sense. I don't get it. But good for you, BYU.
Yeah.
Then I have number 16 Kansas sweeping Oklahoma, 25-20, 25-21, 25-18. And then number 18 Dayton again wins on the road over Davidson, 25-22, 25-19, 25-21. So that rounds out Saturday. I have 4 notable games for Sunday. And let's see, 1, 2, 3. 3 of them are upsets.
Yeah.
And one of them should have been.
Yeah.
Should have been 4. We'll get. I'm not going to get heated about it yet. Okay. First up, I have number 5 Oregon hosting the most inconsistent team in NCAA. Number 19 Arizona State, and Arizona State swept.
Yeah, I was shocked. I was like, what is happening right
now? So Arizona State won 27-25, 25-18, 25-19. Just like what? The score, like the hitting percentages were pretty even on both sides of the net. Yep. Oregon's top hitter was Mimi Collier, 6'3", sophomore outside. She had 11 kills on 35 attempts for a .114. And then for Arizona State, Marta Levinska again, 12 kills, 4 errors on 30 attempts for a .267. My first note, it says, again, Arizona State, what the fuck? I just, whatever. You know what? They're just going to do whatever they want. That's really what's going to happen here.
Yeah, I'm not going to question Arizona State anymore. They're just, going to do their own thing. They're going to take things to 5. They're going to sweep people. They're going to lose in a sweep. They're going to lose in a reverse sweep. Like, I'm done trying to figure out or analyze their wins and losses because it's just, it's too hard.
It doesn't matter.
No.
One thing I do want to note is this is the kind of third big loss that Oregon has taken. So they lost to Minnesota in 5 on September 8th, and then they lost to Washington State in 4 on October 1st. So this is definitely the lowest ranking team they've lost to, and they're only like their third like notable loss this year. So definitely kind of tough for Oregon.
Yeah. Not a good look.
My next upset, I watched this game actually because again I was like, this is gonna be great. It's gonna be a great game. Number 23 Kentucky swept number 10 Tennessee at Tennessee. 25-20, 26-24, 27-25. So good game, but not a lot of game. It went pretty fast. So again, this is another one where I was like, Mom, like Kentucky's good. Like, this will be a pretty good game. It wasn't. So that's that. Just again, I don't know why I even opened my mouth. So Tennessee's top hitter was Morgan Fingal, 16 kills, 4 errors on 35 attempts for a .343%. And then Kentucky had their top hitter was Brooklyn Delier. I don't know. I like it. 6'2" freshman outside. She had 13 kills, 2 errors on 30 attempts for a .367. And then they had 2 hitters with 12 kills. Elise Goetzinger, 6'4" senior middle, had 12 kills, 0 errors, 19 attempts for a .632%. And Azani Teeler, 5'10" fifth-year middle, had 12 kills, 2 errors, 19 attempts for a .526.
Mm-hmm.
Large numbers. Numbers.
Yeah. I feel like.
Go ahead.
I was just going to say, I feel like we haven't really been talking about Kentucky very much. Like, they've just been sitting very low at the top 25 and haven't been doing much. They've been losing to teams that they probably shouldn't be. Mm-hmm. They are winning on teams that they shouldn't be. It's just, they're doing their own thing like Arizona State. But I think they are still in like a rebuilding year from a few years ago when they had some really good players that all graduated. So I think they're still kind of feeling some of that.
Yeah. So if I remember correctly, oh no, I'm thinking of Kansas. Never mind. No, Kentucky's always a good team. Like they're always in there. And I just think like, I mean, the rankings don't show it. Like this probably could have been either one's game, but Tennessee made so many errors. So many service errors, hitting errors, blocking errors. Oh my God. It was never ending with the errors from Tennessee. Yet the whole game, I argued with my mom. I was like, Tennessee's going to come back. Like they're too good to lose. Like they're not going to lose. Yeah, and they lost. So, you know, if you're a team and I'm making a prediction about you, better run. Okay, let's talk about this last upset.
Okay.
This one hurt me a little bit.
Yeah.
Number 11, Georgia Tech, also quite inconsistent, hosted Miami, a team we have never once uttered the word of on this podcast, or read anywhere really.
No, that's not true. The one time when they played Wisconsin, remember? And they took Wisconsin to like 4 or 5 in the very beginning of the season.
Miami?
Yeah. Because their jerseys are green and they're black, green, and orange. I'll find it. You keep talking. I'll do my research.
I'll run you through some stats here while Liv proves me wrong. Okay, Miami swept. They won 25-23, 25-20, 26-24. Leading hitters for Georgia Tech were Bianca Bertolino, 13 kills, 5 errors, 28 attempts for a .286. And Tamara Oteni, 12 kills, 4 errors, 32 attempts for a .250. For Miami, Grace Lopez, the 6'1" freshman outside, just decided to pop off. She had 22 kills, 7 errors on 49 attempts for a .306. And then the next best hitter was Flor Marie Heredia, I think that's her name. 6' sophomore outside, 12 kills, 3 errors, 29 attempts for a .310. Go ahead, Liv.
I was right.
No! What happened?
Well, I wasn't right about the scores, but I was right that they played them. Okay. Wisconsin played Miami at the Fieldhouse on September 8th. They swept Miami. But there had to have been a reason that we talked about it, because I think they were doing that little dance with Sarah, Temmie, and Julia, and I think that was one of
I bet you're right. What week was that?
September 8th.
Oh, okay.
Well, let me look on my handy dandy spreadsheet and see if it's.
I didn't do my spreadsheet
week
yet.
2, I think, because my week 3 started with the 12th. So yeah, it had to been week 2 that they played them.
Okay, I might not have that. 8:30. Wisconsin and Arkansas. No, I don't have any notes on that.
Oh, I thought we did talk about them. Maybe I just watched them. Maybe we were texting about it. That's why.
It's all getting so confusing. No, you're probably
too much volleyball in my head.
Yeah. Anyway, Miami making their what seems to be second appearance on the pod with a big win. That's going to hurt Georgia Tech really bad.
Yeah, really, really bad.
Well, I don't know why I'm making predictions. I've already seen the new rankings, but that's okay. Yeah. Okay, let's move into the last notable game. However, not an upset. Could have been, but wasn't.
Probably
Number
should have been.
24, number 24, Minnesota gets the win over Northwestern 25-14, 16-25, 25-27, 25-22, 15-12. Taylor Landfair actually led this game in kills. She had 15 kills, 7 errors, 47 attempts for a .170% with 12 digs for double-double. And Lydia Grote, the 6'2 senior right side, had 14 kills, 6 errors, 43 attempts for a .186%, 12 kills, double-double. Northwestern, however, Miss Julia Sangiacomo, 6'5 fifth-year outside, had 24 kills, 11 errors on 68 attempts with a .191%, 12 digs, and 3 aces. So she basically held the whole team on her shoulders, carried them to the end. The next best hitter was Avery Hernandez, 6'2 sophomore outside. She had 14 kills, 6 errors, 28 attempts for a .286. Yes. I said not surprised. Northwestern has proven to be a bit of an underdog in recent matches, and Minnesota's not been playing good. So could have gone either way.
Yep.
I didn't watch this game. I can't watch Minnesota anymore right now.
No, they make me very, very angry. So I have a love-hate relationship with Minnesota right now. So I'm choosing to keep my distance from them.
Yeah, we're taking a break.
So they can figure their shit out.
Literally. Okay, I'm going to read through the rest of the 15th and finish with the game that you attended so you can tell me all about it. So I have number 3 Stanford hosted UCLA and won in 4, 25-27, 25-23, 25-20, 25-10. When I was writing those scores, it really confused me. They lost the first set 25-27. When you start with 25, it's confusing.
Yeah, it is.
Number 4 Washington State swept Colorado at home 25-23, 25-19, 25-17. Number 6 Louisville gets the win over Virginia in 3, 25-16, 25-16, 25-17. Number 8 Pittsburgh gets a sweep over Notre Dame 25-16, 25-23, 25-19. Number 12 Arkansas gets the win over Alabama in 4, 25-10, 25-13, 23-25, 25-13. And Ohio State drops to number 15 Purdue in 4. Those scores are 25-19, 17-25, 25-21, 28-26. Anything you want to talk about, Liv?
With that stuff?
Yeah. Pretty simple, pretty predictable.
Yep.
Which is why we're coasting over it, because I want to hear about Liv's experience at number 1 Wisconsin hosting and killing Maryland.
Yeah.
25-15, 25-12, 25-16.
Yeah. Yeah, so I went to the game with my family. My brother goes to Madison, so he was there and his girlfriend came and my sister and I and my parents were all there. So that was a lot of fun to be there. I think you mentioned it, the games that you have been to Wisconsin. You want to go and watch Wisconsin, but also you don't want to go when they're going to just have an ass kicking because it's just not as fun. Obviously It's fun to see them win, but Maryland played so bad. Nothing was working for them. I thought maybe it would go to 4. At least Maryland would be competitive. They had beaten Minnesota. They have been playing pretty well. And then they show up like that and can barely do anything. Their connections just were not working. A lot of communication errors, hitting errors from their outsides. Wisconsin's block was insane. Anna Schmeck played out of her mind. She was just towering over these girls. But it was also cool that we had gone to the Maryland game because Maryland setter, Sydney Dowler, her dad and brother were my 14's year coaches. So my first year in Milwaukee Sting, her dad and brother were my club coaches. So that was also the year when I had torn my ACL. And they were really great coaches. I really loved them. And her mom was our club director at the time. So we have known her family for 9 years now. So I got to see my old club coaches, club director, got to see them. So it was kind of cool to talk with them and catch up with them. So it was just kind of like a full circle moment there. But yeah, I mean, the field house was so much fun just to be at. My sister had never been to the field house before, so that was cool for her to experience it. And they just put on a great show in general. But like I said, I wish Maryland had stepped up their game a little bit more. But it is what it is. Interesting about this game was Devin Robinson was out. She was not dressed, but she was on the bench. And MJ Hamill was nowhere to be found in the gym. I don't know if she is injured or if she was out for illness or if there was something family related. I couldn't find her, so they were running a 5-1, which I thought it went well against Maryland, but I don't think that it's going to. I don't think that they're going to have a horrible time if they have to keep it against stronger teams, but I think they're stronger with the 6-2.
Yeah.
So
I think so too. They just have too much going for them on the offense to eliminate weapons, you know?
Yeah.
Like they don't have a Melanie Schaffmaster where when she's in the front row, she's a big block and she's a big offensive threat. Like they don't have that. So to bench a Devin Robinson or an Anna Smrek to run a 5-1 just seems like a waste.
Yeah. Yeah, so I'm not sure what's going on with Wisconsin and their lineup. Hopefully by this weekend they will have it figured out and all players are well and healthy. I'm thinking that Devin was just maybe kind of doing like more of a prevention, like maybe she has an ongoing injury and just taking the week off because she also didn't play when on Friday, right, when they played Rutgers or whatever day that was. She wasn't dressed either. So I'm wondering if she's just sitting out some of these lesser matches for Big Ten play to preserve herself, which it's smart to do. But I'm hoping MJ Hamill is okay and well. Obviously, I wasn't listening to the game like the commentator, so I don't know if they said anything about it for me to know where she may have been. So.
Yeah, I didn't watch. I was receiving updates from Liv, so I didn't watch. I was actually watching the Bears play, which isn't an excuse by any means. But yeah, so I didn't watch this game either. So I didn't hear anything. I wish I did, but they don't like. I kind of wish that their Instagram or like would post stuff like that because like the people want to know.
Yeah.
Like, has she posted anything?
I was gonna look and I totally forgot to. It was just like kind of uncharacteristic if like you're injured to not be there unless she's
excuse me.
Bless you. Like unless she has, I think I texted this, like unless she has a concussion that she got somehow that she can't physically be in the field house because it's too loud and stuff.
Yeah.
But other than that, if it's injury wise, I feel like they would have put out an update. Like I feel like typically with injuries they do that.
Fair.
But like, but as far as like illnesses or family emergencies or things like that, they typically keep that kind of quiet. So I don't know.
Yeah, I didn't watch the game against Rutgers, so I don't know if she got smoked and has a concussion or what's going on.
I could probably look and see if she played that match. Standby.
Yes, ma'am. While we're on standby with Liv, we decided that this week was a bit, it was a bit, what would be the word?
I have no idea.
It was a bit of a plateau, you know, nothing, there was a lot of upsets, which were pretty great, but nothing super bad. So for our start and bench segment, we're just going to start. No one's benched today.
Oh, lucky ducks.
Yeah, you've
all been saved.
We're tired of putting Minnesota on the bench, so we're just not going to do one. I'm just ruthless against Minnesota today.
You are. It's fine.
Well, they're just not making it any fun for me recently.
Quick. I'm off standby now. She did not play. She did not play against Rutgers.
Weird.
Yeah.
I hope that's resolved by Saturday.
Agreed.
Okay, let's run through our starts.
Okay, go ahead.
Okay, my start is Texas. I'm a Longhorns fan. I am. I loved watching them win the national championship last year. They deserved every bit of it. They were definitely kind of shaky to start this year without Logan Eggleston, but they've really kind of found their footing and have just been dominating in conference. And I enjoy seeing them play. I enjoy seeing them continue to win. Madison Skinner is probably one of the best players in college volleyball right now. And I don't know, like they have a lot of good going for them. It makes me happy. It makes me excited. I'd love to see a Nebraska-Texas matchup. I'm really hoping that that's somewhere in the postseason for us to enjoy, because that would be huge. But to see Madison Skinner and Harper Murray kind of go like at each other would just be so great as a fan. So that's who I am starting. I'm getting good vibes. I'm getting serotonin. It's just an exciting time for Texas, and I'm enjoying it.
Okay. I like it. All right. My starter is Indiana.
Ooh, yep.
The underdog. So they are 5-3 for Big Ten Conference. This is their first 5-3 record, first time since 1993. And this past week, or the awards for the Big Ten just came out today. They had Big Ten Freshman of the Week, Ramsey Gary, and they had Big Ten Setter of the Week was Cameron Haworth. So they had 2 of the 4 awards for Big Ten Player of the Week. They also, Julie, I don't know how to say her last name. Savannah K. It's KJO, blah, blah, blah.
Yeah, K is fine.
Yeah.
Savannah K.
She is her hitting percentage right now is 400, and she is getting 1.24 blocks per set. Ramsey Gary, who was the Big Ten Freshman of the Year, it has 4.72 digs per set. Cameron Haworth, it has 9.72 assists per set, and then Candela Alonso Corcelis has 2.97 kills per set. And that's through the first 8 games of conference play. So even though they're not ranked in the top 25, I do think that slowly they're going to start making their way up there, if they're not already right at 26 probably. I think they're going to start peeking their heads in the top 25, and they are underdogs. They are super scrappy. They have a lot of fire and a lot of grit to them. So I wouldn't be surprised to see them, take more upsets in the next few weeks. And I'm kind of excited to see what they can do, because they've taken quite a lot of teams to 4, even though if they haven't won, they took Nebraska to 4. They are pushing top teams to compete against them. And I think that's making them better and is going to help them come the end of the conference and end of the season.
Yeah, that's exciting. That's a good pick. I think that they were definitely right out the gate this week, a team to watch, and they will continue to have some pretty good face-offs for the rest of Big Ten play. And I definitely think they're going to be in the top of the conference for sure.
Yeah.
Sweet.
Yeah.
What a week.
Yeah.
All right. So like Liv and I kind of said, week 8 is where we're going to start getting into it quite a bit here. So I'm going to read off some face-offs that you can look for. I don't have where they're streamed on, so TBD on that. Keep your eye peeled. But it really starts on Wednesday, October 18th. Number 1 Wisconsin hosts Ohio State. Northwestern hosts number 2 Nebraska. That could be an interesting game because Nebraska's slow on the road and Northwestern is clearly showing that they want it. TCU hosts number 7 Texas, number 8 Pittsburgh hosts Virginia, number 15 Purdue hosts Indiana, and Michigan State hosts Michigan. Moving on to Thursday. Let's see what's on Thursday. Oh, BYU, number 9 BYU hosts number 25 Iowa State. That could be a pretty good one. Nothing else Thursday. On Friday, we have Oregon State is hosting number 3 Stanford. I would probably watch that after Oregon State's big win. Number 5 Oregon's hosting California. Number 9 BYU and number 25 Iowa State will go at it again. Number 10 Tennessee is hosting number 12 Arkansas. Number 13 Penn State's hosting Iowa. Texas A&M is hosting number 14 Florida. Number 23 Kentucky's hosting Mississippi State. And then number 24 Minnesota hosts Rutgers. Moving on to Saturday. I'm really hurting that I can't watch this, but number 2 Nebraska is hosting number 1 Wisconsin. I have to work. I'm upset. I'm so upset. I'm so upset. Like, why did this happen? I'm so upset. So Liv's gonna text me updates. I'm gonna have to watch so that I can stay in the loop. That's gonna be the game to watch. The game to watch. Let's see. Texas Tech will host number 21 Houston. Not a lot of action on Saturday. On Sunday, we get into a little more nitty-gritty here. So number 5 Oregon is hosting number 3 Stanford. UCLA is hosting number 4 Washington State. Number 23 Kentucky is hosting number 12 Arkansas. Number 13 Penn State is hosting number 15 Purdue. Number 24 Minnesota hosts Michigan State. And that looks like all the big ones. Yeah. So lots coming up. Saturday is going to be a big one.
Yeah, something to note about the Stanford-Oregon game, that time was changed to be playing at 5:30 on Sunday night, and it will be streamed on ESPN. So they changed the time so it could be broadcasted on ESPN. So I think they heard us from last week when we were saying whatever the game was, the Washington State and what was it, Oregon or something like that?
Yeah, I think so.
We're like, it's so stupid that they weren't
number
streaming
4, number 5, yeah.
Yes. And I think they heard us because now you'll be able to watch Oregon and Stanford play on ESPN. So volleyball is taking over Sunday Night Football, and I'm here for it.
Ooh, who even plays on Sunday Night Football this week?
I have no idea. Not the Packers.
Me either. Yeah, I don't think I ain't the Bears either, so whatever. All right. Let's talk about these week 8 rankings that came out this afternoon, and then we will round out this episode. Yeah. So a little bit of movement, nothing crazy in the top here. So number 1 remains Wisconsin. Number 2 remains Nebraska. Number 3 remains Stanford. And number 4 remains Washington State.
Yep.
Louisville moves up to number 5. Texas, number 6. Pittsburgh is number 7, and they were number 8, correct? Yeah.
Yes. Yep.
Oregon is now number 8.
Yeah.
They fell after their loss. BYU is number 9. Arkansas, number 10. Moving up. Number 11, Penn State. Number 12, Tennessee. Dropped 2 spots.
Yep.
Number 13, Georgia Tech. They dropped 2 spots as well. Number 14 is Kansas. Number 15 is Creighton. Number 16 is Dayton, not to be confused with Creighton. There's a tie for number 17, which, like, I don't get this, but whatever.
I don't either.
Like, come on. Tie for 17 is Arizona State and Florida. So Florida just tumbling down the ladder.
So
number 19 is Purdue.
Mm-hmm.
And number 20 is Kentucky.
Mm-hmm.
21 Baylor. Baylor, man, tumbling. That number 18 spot, they're tumbling. Number 22 is Houston. Number 23 Auburn. Number 24 UCF. And number 25, we're welcoming back Western Kentucky.
Yeah. So I am on the NCAA D1 women's volleyball rankings website right now, and because this is kind of nice because it shows the rank or the school, the rank, what they previously were the week prior, and then their record, and then it shows points. And so the points I think are votes from the AVCA people, whoever they are, and Wisconsin and Nebraska, same record. Wisconsin has 1,594 points, and Nebraska has 1,539 points. So they're pretty close. But then it shows other teams that are receiving votes. The next one would be Minnesota with 101 votes. James Madison, Iowa State, UC Santa Barbara, Indiana is receiving votes. Ohio State, Texas A&M, and Marquette are all the top teams that are receiving votes that could be put into the next week's rankings.
Yeah, because that is something that is notable is Minnesota is no longer listed in the top 25.
Yes.
I don't think that's crazy harsh, but a little.
Yeah, especially because what did I say? They won out this weekend in Big Ten play, and they were 24. I was surprised that they just didn't stay at 24.
Yeah, and it could be that there were other teams that deserved it more, but I just think it's a little, I mean, there's only 25 spots, so being at number 24, they knew they were on the chopping block.
Yeah.
But if winning out isn't enough, there's nothing you could really do. But I was kind of oh, okay.
Yeah.
Just the last thing I want to note. So Liv and I were talking about this before we started recording, but Wisconsin now has 8 straight sweeps and 27 straight sets won.
Yep.
So, that's probably aiding in a lot of those votes.
Yeah.
And that's a great point that Wisconsin has been sweeping and Nebraska's been going to 4.
Yep.
However, it will all be determined on Saturday.
My gosh.
Half of it will be determined on Saturday, I should say.
What do you think after this past week?
Well, now I don't know because Wisconsin's got girls out.
I know.
If Devin Robinson doesn't play, they're in trouble.
I mean, I thought Anna Schmeck played really well and kind of took over, but Izzy Ashburn is not tall enough to block Harper and Lindsay Krause, I don't think.
Definitely not Lindsay Krause. I don't think that's a good matchup to put up against Harper Murray. I also don't want to miss out on seeing, well, I'm not going to get to watch it live anyway, but I don't want to miss out on seeing Devin Robinson be Devin Robinson against Nebraska. She gets big blocks and she's turning around, she's sticking her tongue out. I want to see that. I want to see it all. And that's going to be a bummer. Hopefully she's resting for that.
Yeah. That's my guess.
I don't think she's needed against Ohio State.
No.
So I'm kind of hoping that if it is really that bad, they just let it be on Wednesday and let the 5-1 they'll be okay.
Yeah.
As long as they put Anna Smrek in with Emily Londa, they'll be okay.
Yes.
They got to save it all for Saturday. And I don't know where you are, MJ, but
come back.
All right. We'll see what happens. That's going to be a big topic of conversation next week's episode, I'm sure. So be prepared to be sick of us. Okay. All right. That wraps up episode 16 and week 7. We are heading into week 8. Again, if you can watch, be sure to watch. These games are crucial in conference play, crucial in postseason rankings. it all matters more now. So tune in if you haven't been, and we'll see you next week.
Yes.